Well, it's finally here. The EFM2 Speed Booster by Viltrox. Is this the Metabones killer? At 1/4 of the price, I think there's a lot of value and bang for your buck here. We're going to deep dive into this adapter, try out a few of the lenses I have on hand, and let you guys decide. All that coming up next. Viltrox's EFM2 Speed Booster and the GH5. This combination can't be beat. At 1/4 of the price, the EFM2 delivers a lot of value. So is the Viltrox the Metabones killer? So up until now, there hasn't really been a competitor to Metabones. Metabones was such a revolutionary piece of technology. It allowed you to take a full-frame Canon EF lens and mount it to a Micro Four Thirds, as well as other formats that Metabones supports. So what's the problem? Well, the obvious problem is price. Metabones is super expensive at $699 US compared to the EFM2, which is currently retailing for about $200 to $215 US on eBay. This is worth a look. First, let's analyze a couple of details. First, the Speed Booster by Metabones we're talking about is the Ultra, which is the 0.71x Speed Booster. We're not talking about the 0.64 version. For that, Viltrox hasn't made one yet. But is this really worth the value, considering it's less than 1/4 of the price? I tend to think it is, because it does all of the functions that the Metabones does, and the quality stays the same.
So here is the pros and cons list of the EFM2 Speed Booster. We're going to take a look at some of these in a little more detail. The Speed Booster has a really nice construction. It's an all-metal construction, as you can see, and it's got a nice weight to it. When attaching the Speed Booster to the GH5, it goes in quite nicely. Once that Speed Booster is in place, you'll hear the nice click. During my testing, I didn't notice any wiggling or shaking loose of the adapter, and it fits quite snugly. Speed Booster also has a 1/4" 20 tripod mount and USB for updating firmware too. This Speed Booster has a toggle dial so that you can change the aperture on lenses that do not have a manual focus ring. Another thing to note is that all camera metadata and IS information, or stabilization information, will pass through. That is, however, except for EFS lenses with the extruding ring at the back that don't fit. More on this later. As I said before, I'm using a GH5 as my camera body today. And the lenses on hand I had were the Sigma 18-35 f1.8. This is a good pairing for the GH5. I'm also trying out the Nifty 50 or the Canon 50mm f1.8. The Tokina 11-16mm f2.8, which is a wide-angle lens. And a lens I've been wanting to try out for a while, which is the Tamron 16-300mm Super Zoom. This has Tamron's image stabilization, but it doesn't have a constant aperture, so it's going to be interesting. If you were like me, you were hoping you can use EFS lenses, and by EFS lenses, I mean the native EFS lenses. Unfortunately, you can't. There's an extra ring that sticks out that prevents the adapter from fitting. However, as you've noticed in this lineup, there are some EFS lenses that have a native EF mount, and those are the lenses that I'm hoping to adapt. Next up, testing and some examples. So I'm just doing a little bit of testing against the green screen in my studio, just to give you guys an example of the focal range and also a little bit about the autofocus. Now, continuous autofocus I've noticed doesn't work. However, manual autofocus for just refocusing your image does. Now, when I say continuous autofocus doesn't work, I mean continuous autofocus in video mode. Autofocus is a big topic on the GH5, and I'm not going to cover it all here. Look for a future video on that. The test footage was shot on the GH5 in 4K and downscaled to 1080p using the Vlog color profile. Next up, Canon's 50mm f1.8. This becomes an f1.2 on the GH5 with the EF-M2. This is a great way to get cheap glass, get good results on the GH5 using the EF-M2. The only downside to this lens is that it is focused by wire, so you don't get an actual manual control for the focus. The number 3 on the list is the Tokina 11-16mm APS-C wide-angle lens. The Tokina basically becomes an f2 lens on the GH5 using the EF-M2. I was really excited about this one because I'm doing real estate photography and I need an ultra-wide-angle lens. The speed booster allows me to get most of that focal length back. And finally, of our list of lenses we're trying out today, we have Tamron's 16-300mm Super Zoom. I was very excited to try this lens, however what I soon discovered is that the lens does have some issues with the EF-M2 adapter. Occasionally when zooming in, the adapter and the camera would actually freeze up. I had to actually pull the battery on this to get it to work again. That being said, when it works great, and you can get away with some manual focusing. Next up, a real-world example.
That's the end of the video today. I hope you found something useful in the video. Once again, leave a comment down below if you have any specific experience with the Viltrox that you'd like to share, any particular lenses that work or don't work in your experiences. Smash that like button if that's something you want to do, and consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification icon so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks again. Bye.